Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get this council meeting going. And I would like to note that it is called to order at what appears to me to be 1:03 p.m. on March the 13th. Welcome to everybody. I can confirm that we have, without doing a head count, I believe we have all councillors present either here in person or via Zoom. So thanks to everybody for being here. I can also confirm that the CAO, the clerk, and other members of the township senior management team are also present, and some of them will be here to speak to us throughout the course of the next couple of hours. And I would also ask that you join me in acknowledging that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. Thank you. Okay, as always is the case, today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and its YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and posted online. We did solicit public input on the agenda at TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. And I don't know if it was directly as a consequence of that, but we did in fact receive some pieces of correspondence which have been placed on a supplementary agenda pursuant to section 7.2.1 of Council Procedure Bylaw 2023-089. And those comments are in the nature of comments received from the Muskoka Lakes Association, the Friends of Muskoka, Skeleton Lake Cottagers Organization, and Leonard Lake Stakeholders Association. And they all related to Township of Muskoka Lakes official plan appeals to the Ontario Land Tribunal. All right, I'm going to ask at this time for anyone on council who has a pecuniary interest that's obvious from the contents of the agenda to please identify yourself and your conflict. Councillor Nishikawa.
I'm declaring conflict for item 2 under General Finance Committee meeting minutes, LS 2024-007.
Thank you. And the reason is?
Employment.
Employment. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. I'm declaring on items 7A1. I did not attend the special planning meeting on short-term rentals, and I will not be because I have an indirect pecuniary interest. And the second is the 7A3. As there an item on those minutes, and it's the same. I'm on the road association on that particular item.
Thank you for that. So when those matters come up for either Councillor Nishikawa or Councillor Mazan, you will just simply get up and remove yourself from the room, and we'll signify when it's time to come back. I too have a conflict to declare. Item 10J regarding to the memorandum of understanding with the library board. And the reason is my wife is the chair of the library board. So I'm going to step out during that time, and Councillor Mazan, Deputy Mayor Mazan, will take the chair for that matter. Finally, before we move to the real substance, just by way of explanation, the motions that you're going to hear, they've been pre-populated with random movers and seconders, and this is simply done to expedite the process and get the meeting moving forward in a brisk fashion. And a reminder to all on council that when it comes to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until I have confirmed the vote. And if the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, which in that case would not be considered a recorded vote. Okay. All right. So we'll move forward then with agenda items. And the first issues are on public comments, and I don't believe we have any. We had no one register for public comments. We'll move on to item number 7, the consent agenda. And we'll start with a resolution on the I believe it's, it's the one Councillor Mazan is recused from. It's a motion moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the March 13, 2024 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Number one, February 13, 2024 special planning committee minutes and action item 2. Anyone with any comments on the contents of that document? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Signature. Oh, yeah. We'll invite Councillor Mazan back. The next one, Councillor Nishikawa has recused. This one is item 7A2. Resolution goes like this, moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the March 13, 2024 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. So it's number 2, February the 14, 2024 General and Finance Committee minutes and action item 2. Any comments, questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. There we go. Yeah. Okay, next item is number 3, and that is moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the March 13, 2024 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. It's number 3, February the 14, 2024 council minutes. Anybody with any comments or feedback on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Okay, final one from the consent agenda is number 4, and it is moved by Councillor Bosamworth, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the March 13, 2024 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Number 2, February the 14th, 2024 General and Finance Committee minutes and action items 1, 3, 5, and 6. And number 4, February the 15th, 2024 Planning Committee minutes and action items 1 through 11. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to other items of business. I don't think we have any new business to discuss. There's nothing on the agenda for this. So we'll go to the number 10, senior management team reports, RFPs and tenders. And first up, I think, is Mr. Moore. And you're going to speak on Parks and Trail Standards Manual. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. Yes, today's first report is the award of a request for proposal for the development of a Parks and Trails Standards Manual. Council will recall this past fall, we developed an implementation strategy as part of our newly formed Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And the development of said manual was a top priority and included for this year in the budget. We did only receive one proposal as part of the RFP. In saying that, it was very well done, and as reflected in the score, staff thought highly of it and therefore are quite confident they can complete the project and deliver. Therefore, staff are recommending to proceed with the award to Kendall Flower Landscape Architecture in the amount of $39,950. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anyone with any questions before I read the resolution? Seeing none, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Bosamworth, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. be it resolved that council award RFP 2024-09 for the completion of a Parks and Trails Standards Manual to Kendall Flower Landscape Architecture in the amount of $39,950 plus HST, and that the Director of Operational Services be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract. Anybody have a comment or question? I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Mr. Moore, you're still there. I'm talking about dock removal and rehabilitation next.
Yes, through you, your worship. The next one is the replacement of the Sunset Park dock in Torrance. We issued a tender for this project and received 4 bids. The lowest compliant bid was from Embertech Industrial Inc. at a price of $251,731.20. Staff are comfortable with awarding the contract to them. And we'll note that staff have included in the recommendation the authority to use the remaining funds in the budget. We do expect there to be some additional costs associated with this project. The tender itself was formed on a bid price for 20-foot piles. We do expect that to probably be more, and therefore we'd like to ensure we have those funds available to do so. With that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Anyone with any questions for Mr. Moore? Seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Zabitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved, the council award contract T-2024-08 to Embertech Industrial Inc. for the bid price of $251,731.20 plus HST. And that staff be authorized to use the balance of the approved project funds in the amount of $98,268.90 to cover any additional costs that may be associated with the project, including any additional piling costs and unanticipated out-of-scope work. And that the Director of Operational Services be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract. Any questions, comments? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you to you. I find it challenging when we put a number up there that says this is up for grabs. So if you don't stay within your budget, we've got another. I just found this very challenging, this report, quite frankly.
Thank you for that. Anyone else with a question or a comment? I'm seeing none, so I will call a question. All in favor? And opposed? Thank you. That carries. Mr. Moore, you are still there with Walker's Point kitchen renovation, ventilation system.
Yes, through you, your worship. The final tender for this month was the upgrade to the Walker's Point Community Center kitchen. We've been working on this one for quite a while with the engineers developing proper designs, etc. Unfortunately, we only received 2 bids for the project, one being non-compliant and the other bid being pretty close to double what the budget for the project was. We were able to confirm those expected costs with the engineer tasked with the project. And with that, at this time, staff would recommend that we reissue the tender to try again, and then evaluate from there. With that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Anyone with any questions on this matter? Councillor Bosenworth.
Just a technical question in the financial implications. You
talked this through me to anyone in particular?
I beg your pardon, Chair. It was through you. Zing. This is to be purchased by the owner, capital O owner. I was just wondering who the owner is.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, I believe Councillor is referring to the purchase of the stove unit itself, the owner being us, the township.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions? Comments? Sure, absolutely. Oh, no, let me read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that council reject all tenders for the award of contract T-2024-05 and that staff be directed to retender project number 23152 Walker's Point Community Center Kitchen Ventilation System upgrades. Now, Councillor McIntyre. Thank you.
Oh, there's another trick.
It's a lot to remember.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. And I'm sure, you know exactly what I'm going to say. I sent out my little, every month I send out my council report. And I got, based on the Walker's Point Kitchen, I got an email that is, people are really, really, really upset. So just to increase your pressure and make sure that you share with me the pressure of a non-functional kitchen. It's important, it's time.
Thank you very much. My only comment would be in this particular case, I think the prudent thing to do is to retender. I mean, I know it takes time, but we don't have much choice. Councillor Nishikawa, did you have a question?
Thank
And then
you.
Councillor Kett, you're on deck.
Well, through you, I just wanted to be reminded of how long this community has been without a kitchen. And there's a whole different history behind this and the number of emails that are coming through with those exact details and that is concerning. So I would like to have that better understanding of how long has this time frame been happening?
And I don't know, Mr. Moore, can you speak to that? Do you know how long it's been?
Yeah, I may have to defer to the director if possible, just I know he's been.
Director
been
Becky?
here.
The matter was brought to council's attention initially in December of 2022. So we're now 16 months. Unfortunately, this is the price that has to be paid in order to bring things up to current standards.
Sorry, does anyone else have a question? I have a question, but I'll wait till I hear everyone. Oh, Councillor Kent, sorry, I'd already identified you. And then are you, Councillor Roberts, you're next. Okay.
Yes,
So-
thank you. And through you.
Thank you.
I just had a question for Mr. Moore, which is what was the problem with the tender process and why are we not getting any bidders? And I guess it goes back to the last one as well, which is, we had a range of bidders that went from $800,000 to $200,000, which obviously raises your eyes about what the process was like. But I'm wondering if retendering this is going to change something. Did we do something unusual in the way we tendered it? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Moore or Director Becking, either or.
Through you, Chair, I can take a stab first.
Sure.
Nothing was done differently in regards to the issuing of this tender. It's a very similar process to that of the Sunset Park dock. The tender is published on the website and a third-party bidding site. Also, staff do reach out to a variety of different potential vendors that may be interested in the project. Each project just can differ based on the area of that work. It's expected that you do get a range of bids in these size of projects. There always does seem to be a company that's maybe willing to put something out there and see if maybe there's nothing else kind of thing. In this regard, I don't think there's anything we did wrong. And I think by going out to retender, I think it does send a little bit of a message as well to that industry, and therefore we can evaluate when we see the results of that process.
Thank you for that. Councillor Roberts, I think you were next, and then Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I support all the councils here. This has been a very long time. And a stove in a community center is a lifeline of that community center. It was evident with what we had on Saturday night in Milford Bay. So I think we have to think outside the box on this, on the tenders. I know there's trades all over Ontario that would want to do this. if we could bring it within, help them with their costs. So this is just a off the cuff idea, is you paid port costs or living costs for a company to come up, because I know there's all kinds of them that would come up here and stay in a hotel and that. And probably give you a more attractive price, but we only got one bidder. As you say, let's put a travel balloon up there and double the price, $200,000, a lot of money. So maybe in our retendering, we got to think about what other little incentives we could offer to a company-owned sound that'll come over. And we're not talking a big company. You're talking a shop of 4 or 5 people. They could have come into Muskoka to do work. But we must do anything we can do to get a stove into especially Walker's Point being one of our hub communities. I mean, it's supposed to be our jewel. So without a stove, they can boil water.
Director Becking, you had your hand up.
Your worship, I understand that the whole contracting business and how it works, and particularly when one is in a remote area. I can't get into the details, but suffice it to say that had there not been a clerical error with the other bid, we would be having a very different discussion. So I think the right answer is to retender. And I expect that hopefully if people do what they're supposed to do, which was not unusual, it's part of our standard process, we will have a very different discussion the next go around.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bosenworth.
Well, I think my question has been mostly answered, but if in case somebody had a little more to add to it, I was just going to ask what will we do different in this process to expect a better outcome? So I think I got most of the answer. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, I'm going to ask one myself, and that is having gone to the turkey dinner at Milford Bay on whatever night that was, Saturday night, where the Lions Club in Windermere, not having a facility close enough to them that was useful, they came and moved to Milford Bay. Is there something we can do short term to move people around and introduce them to their neighbors in Torrance or somewhere else where there is a facility and maybe there isn't? And then they can return the favor when they get the shiny new kitchen and want to show it off. Councillor Nishikawa.
Through you to you, Walker's Point has been a strong community that have community dinners. Many seniors attend for just that. They're attending to be in Walker's Point. And in fact, people come from their retirement homes in Gravenhurst to attend the meal on Walker's Point. And it reflects everything in the room of Walker's Point, the Heritage Committee, the quilting group. It reflects everything. To pop on over to Torrance, nothing looks familiar. Nothing actually talks to them about Walker's Point.
And thank you for that. I wasn't proposing anything permanent. I'm trying to find a way to solve the problem between today and whenever this gets.
And I'm sorry, I'm not saying that even to make that movement, it's a big deal, because there's things that are used. There's all sorts of other, I don't want to say props, but things that, quite frankly, the group have gathered over many, many years, including the cooking utensils and everything else. I would say that those things are not necessarily available in Torrance.
Okay, that's fair. And I thought I would throw it out. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. We will, well, we'll have a vote, but assuming we go retendering, we'll make sure we move with all due haste, get things done. Anyone with any other questions or comments? No, seeing none, then I'll call it up. I read this. I did read this. Yes. Then I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Appreciate it. Next up, I think, is Mr. Cox, and you're going to tell us a little bit about a policy for development of cannabis retail. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. So my report this afternoon is a follow-up to the resolution that was passed at the February meeting of the General Finance Committee, which started the process of the municipality opting in to permitting cannabis retail stores within the bounds of the township. As part of that resolution, staff were directed to bring back a cannabis retail store commenting policy and a delegation of authority bylaw for staff to be able to provide comment to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. And that is what is included in this report. So as council will recall, the AGCO is the sole regulatory body that either approves or denies applications for cannabis retail stores based on their assessment of whether the proposed location meets the public interest. Municipalities have a role in providing comments to the AGCO about whether a proposal meets the public interest in the opinion of the township. And this policy lays out some criteria for how the municipality would assess that. So this is things like ensuring that it complies with building code and fire inspections, that it applies with our zoning bylaw. And it also lays out some sensitive uses where we would request that a space separation be maintained. So in addition to the mandated 150-meter separation from schools, that is part of provincial regulation. This proposed policy would also suggest that that distance be maintained around things like daycares, municipal recreational facilities like libraries, arenas, community centers, and also any facilities that are set up to assist people who are dealing with mental health issues or addictions. So with this policy and the delegation of authority bylaw that you have before you today, once passed, that will allow staff to provide comment to the AGCO whenever they receive an application for a proposed retail cannabis store within the township of Muskoka Lakes. With that, the full details of the policy are contained in my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you for that and for the report. Appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions before I read the resolution? I'll start with Councillor Mazan, then Councillor Bosenworth, Councillor Nishikawa. I saw your hand. Go in that order.
Thank you. And through you.
Thank you.
My question actually is centered on that distance of 150 meters. And I was trying to understand, is that something that's provincially done? And is there differences in rural settings? Because it's not difficult to get to 150 meters pretty quickly in a rural setting. And there's many outlets that would be on proximity to some of the said uses like recreational facilities and stuff like it's just different. So my question is around the 150 meters.
Mr. Cox.
Through you, Your Worship. So the only restriction in terms of distance that is mandated is the 150-meter separation from any sort of elementary or high school. That is contained within provincial regulation, and that is in place regardless of the setting. So it's the same in urban and rural settings. This policy is recommending that we suggest that that area be absorbed around other sensitive uses within the township. The municipality does not have the authority to mandate that. We can say that, in our opinion, public interest is maintained by maintaining that 150-meter separation around libraries and community centers and things like that. And when we provide that comment to the AGCO, they will need to have regard for that when they make a final decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who was next? I forget. Councillor Bosenworth.
Almost an identical question. I was coming at it from a slightly different point of view, is how is it normal for municipalities to put these additional suggestions on the 150 meters? You know, frankly, in Bala, I was going to say the LCBO is close to our recreation center, but it's not that close. It seems to me somewhat unnecessary restriction, given that we have a provincial standard. And as Councillor Mazan said, 150 meters it might eliminate a few places in either of our main towns of Bala and Port Carling. And is that something we really want to do?
Well, through you, your worship. So when preparing this policy, staff took a review of other municipalities that have prepared similar cannabis retail store commenting policies. And a lot of those policies are based on some policy and guidance that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario put out that laid out some of the considerations that are here. With regard to the 150-meter separation, that is what is conventionally found in other communities and other policies, although that is primarily, I think, designed to mirror the 150-meter separation from schools that's laid out in the legislation. There is certainly no hard and fast requirement that it remain 150 meters if council wishes to change the distance or ask that those provisions be removed from the policy.
Councillor Nishikawa, was it you're next or no, Councillor? I thought it was, I've lost track of who's next. You're next.
I'm sort of through you. I guess I'm not sure. I guess I'll ask the question this way. Are you aware that there was a petition drafted from Ward A, quite frankly, in the Torrance area many years ago about this topic? And if I didn't think you all were, however, my concern, or how, I guess now the question would go to the clerk, how are we going to inform the public that an application has been made? And why I'm asking this, if I look back to Port Carling in particular, there was a situation where the residents got involved with the liquor application license for Turtle Jacks, I believe. And in fact, they put the noise bylaw in place for that. But it was important for the community to be involved with that application process. So I'm just not sure, you know, how that will all work out, because I do believe, and I have actually I've held a liquor license in the past. I know what's all required in the regulations, and honestly, it can also just get slid by a community. So I just don't necessarily, I actually even can figure out where, if something is going to pop up, I can pretty much, tell where it's going to happen. I just want the community to have the option to have a comment if need be.
So thank you. And you're directing that to Director Peroshi, is that right? About how we communicate the opportunity for public input. Director Peroshi.
Thank you. Through you. I don't know if I have an answer for that at this time. My only response right now, unless Director Pink or our manager can speak to it, that we would follow the AGCO's guidelines. So whatever needs to be communicated through the AGCO is what we would do.
Sure, you have a supplemental, go ahead.
So interestingly, it wasn't necessarily the municipality putting out this is coming kind of thing, but the municipality joined with the community. So the community was aware. There was postings put up saying they're applying for a liquor license, and the community reacted, but they came to the municipality to gain support, I guess. And so I'm just not sure you're right. Like, I don't know how, but I would hope that this municipality would open the doors to listening to the community's concerns.
Sorry, Director Peroshi, go ahead.
And thank you. And Mr. Cox, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we would receive notification that there's an application and we're only commenting. So we would provide our comments per this policy, but we're not the final approval authority. But not that we wouldn't hear from the public, but it would just be us providing comment.
But again, those comments from the community came through this office. And I think it's important that we know what those comments are. You know, I just think.
Thank you, Director Pink. Did you have your hand up?
Thank you. Through you, I'm not sure if this would be assistance or you're looking for greater, I guess, language surrounding in the policy surrounding community input to the municipality. But my understanding is, and Mr. Cox can correct me if I'm wrong, through the process, the applicant would have to post on the property the application. So members of the community would be able to see that, and they would have the same 15-day commenting period. I think where the challenges lie is within that 15 days, that might not always align with a council meeting and being able to delegate and then influence. However, staff could consider some policy language with respect to potential for council input.
Thank you for that. You were going to speak, CEO Hammond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think another subtle distinction here, which may be helpful, is we're talking retail outlets versus places like restaurants where you would consume from us.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question or a comment? Councillor Roberts, and then Councillor Edwards, you're next.
Thank you. I agree that if we put a restriction other than schools in here into like 150 meters, you're going to eliminate a lot of potential locations for these businesses. We just talk about downtown Bella or downtown Port Carling. I think the real estate's pretty expensive, where an operation like this would be on the fringes. So I would hesitate to support anything more than just what the government of Ontario is proposing.
Councillor Edwards, thank you for that.
You did say it was open for comments. So
Yes, it is.
Chair. The reason I'm not supporting this motion, as I said before, we have no control over this whatsoever. The 150 meters from parks, what is the difference between a child going to school and a child in a park? And that's why I would stick with 150 meters suggested. And that if you look at other municipalities like Huntsville, when there's about 4 shops and within a couple of thousand yards of each other, the same as Bracebridge, and that there's about 8 or 10 stores in between them. And that if we could say we would allow one in, say, Bala and one in Port Carling, I'd be all for it. But because we cannot control them and that I will not be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm going to, I don't think I've read that. I'm going to read this resolution so that we're good to go with comments, because I think I haven't done that yet. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that policy C-PD-08 cannabis retail stores attached to staff report CED-2024-007 as appendix 1 be approved. And that bylaw 2024-035 being a bylaw to delegate authority to the clerk with respect to commenting to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario on AGCO on applications for cannabis retail stores be presented to council for approval. Now, anybody with any other comments they want to make? Councillor Roberts, you sort of had your hand up, but not really. No? Okay, I thought you did. Anyone on the screen? Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. Through, I think I would like to support the way staff have written this report today. I think they've put some thought into this. And I think the 150, interestingly, I'm trying to step outside of the urban centers, which is, I've been trying to listen and think about some of the more rural settings where I know there was a lot of concern historically. So I'm comfortable with the way staff has taken an approach to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else with a comment? Seeing none, I will call a question. All in favor? And I will call anyone opposed. Thank you. That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cox. Appreciate it. Next up is, I believe, Mr. Kennedy, although I don't see him here. Director Pink's gonna, he's got the new haircut to support the new role.
Thank you for
Welcome,
noticing.
Director Pink.
I believe Mr. Kennedy is just tied up in court. Very briefly, the burning bylaw was recently updated, taking effect shortly. This is just a technical amendment to include AMPS penalties. Stand for any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions, Councillor Nishikawa?
And I'm sorry for this, but through you to David, I just recall when we were doing this, that there was a number of concerns about the size of the burn pit or whatever. I'm going back to Jason Sift and a few others that commented, and I don't know where we landed.
Director Pink?
Thank you, through your worship. To be honest, I'm hoping the fire chief may be on the call. Keep in mind, the bylaw in front of you is simply to impose the amps, the actual update to the burning bylaw. And hopefully the fire chief can respond to that. Thank you.
Welcome, Chief Morrell.
Welcome through you to council. I apologize, I'm not there today. As you can hear behind me, we're quite busy today, so give me a second. We're both short-staffed and we were out all night. So what I can tell you about the burning bylaws, we have two clauses inside the bylaw itself that allow for a commercial permit holder to ask us for amendments to the bylaw that will allow a larger fire. The reason that we landed on this approach was that in some sites we want to ensure that although there's been a permit granted to a commercial occupant, that we want to make sure that they understand the setbacks and their responsibilities as it relates to a fire that might grow. This was an existing clause that had existed in the original bylaw, but it was something that hadn't been really highlighted. So we landed on the idea that that was the most preferred approach. I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Anyone with any questions for Chief Morrell? I don't see any, but thank you. I'm going to read the resolution because I haven't read it yet, right? And then we can have any further debate if we need. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-036, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2023-048 to impose administrative monetary penalties for burning bylaw 2023-034, be presented to council for approval. Anybody have a follow-up to that? Then I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next up we have Ms. Lehman. Is she with us? There we are. Welcome, Ms. Lehman. How are you doing?
Hi, great. Good afternoon, everyone.
Nice to see you. You got a couple here, I think. Yes, you do. Okay, carry on with the first one.
Yep, thanks.
Compensation.
Item F, relief from procurement for compensation. So the report provides you notice that there's a compensation review budgeted for 2024. It reviews the principles of the review being internal equity, compliance with pay equity, market competitiveness, and affordability. In addition, we're asking for relief from the procurement bylaw to retain the consultant who has historically been responsible for the compensation project work. Maintaining this relationship is recommended to minimize impacts and ensure ongoing compensation consistency. It's our intention that this work would be exempted through the bylaw in the future. Any questions?
Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Lehman? Otherwise, I'll read the resolution. Councillor Bosenworth.
Through you, in the longer term, how do we ensure that we are getting competitive rates on this service?
Ms. Lehman?
You mean, how do we ensure, sorry, through the chair, how do we ensure if we're not going out to market?
If I may? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Bosenworth.
How do we ensure, not in this case, but say every 5 years, do we go out and get a retender just to ensure that we are getting competitive rates from this sole supplier?
Ms. Lehman?
Yep, we can check quotes as well, is another way that we could be directed to make sure that we're being competitive. Typically, if you use the same consultant, we don't have to redo work, so would start off being less expensive in the first place. But some of it was more around the principles of the consultant being in line with us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else with a question? All right, I'm going to read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that relief from procurement bylaw 2004-161 be granted to the HR manager to sole source compensation consultant services as outlined in report HR 2024-002 to complete the staff compensation review. And that during the update of the procurement bylaw, staff be directed to include specialized external human resources services in the exemption section. Anybody with other comments? Councillor Kent.
Thank you. And through you, I would just suggest that to be clear on Councillor Bosworth's point, we put the solicitation of the services in this for this year. We're not giving it to her for next year or the year after. We're giving this exemption from the bid to compete only in this current annual review. So it would just be a clarification in the bylaw.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, well, does anyone have a question or comment? I have a question of you. Councillor Burry.
So I do have a comment through you. Specialized consulting of this space tends to have a learning curve, and being able to use the same consultant as one would use the same auditor, as one would use the same investment consultant, can typically pay dividends. I think where Councillor Bosworth and Councillor Kent are going is, how do we ensure we're getting value for money in a sole source situation? And I think that we can probably rely on staff to ensure that the quote being provided by the incumbent consultant is in line with what would normally be there. This is a completely reasonable place to have sole source procurement. And in fact, as I think, Manager Lehman was talking to, you don't have this run up of the learning curve. So I'd equate it to you go with an auditor for a whole pile of years until you're not happy with them, and then you make the change. So in this case, we can do the same, ensuring that staff maintain that the level of compensation to the consultant is appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else with a question? An observation to answer Councillor Kent's question. Seems to me that you are limited, the approval that we're giving or proposing to give is limited to just for 1 year. It doesn't cover forward, or does it cover?
Correct. It just covers this year, but we do have a note in that resolution about that we would consider exempting this from the procurement bylaw in the future.
But that's not what we're doing.
That's not what we're doing today.
So that would be a time, for instance, to maybe
More discussion.
require full tender every 5 years or some other mechanism to tie it up.
Yeah.
Okay. And Councillor Kent, does that sort of solve the problem if that's how it gets handled? Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? I've read the resolution. I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Lehman, you're still here on CAO Recruitment Hiring Committee.
Thank you. So the report reviews the process for CAO recruitment, including appointing a committee of council. Typical hiring panels are composed of a variety of backgrounds in order to assist with decision making. In this case, it's being recommended, in addition to members of council, to include a subject matter expert, CAO Stevens, from the District of Muskoka. All of council will be able to input to key competencies to the search through a survey by the recruiter. A recommendation of the committee will come back to council for approval, for final approval. In addition, we're asking for relief from procurement for this matter as well in order to quickly secure professional services. We're a little tight on timeline. In addition, I would also make the same recommendation as the previous report, that this be considered as an exemption from the bylaw, the procurement bylaw in the future.
Thank you very much for that. Anyone with any questions on this CAO search? I'm going to read a resolution. It's long. Looks long. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that relief from the procurement bylaw 2004-161 be granted to the HR manager to sole source recruiter services as outlined in report HR 2024-003 for the upcoming Chief Administrative Officer vacancy, and that a CAO recruitment committee be established with the mandate of facilitating the recruitment process for the CAO role, as well as providing a recommendation to council of a preferred candidate with the following composition. Members, number 1, Mayor Peter Kelley, number 2, Deputy Mayor Susan Mazan, number 3, Councillor Guy Burry, number 4, District Municipality of Muskoka CAO Julie Stevens, and number 5, Human Resources Manager Sarah Lehman. Officers, which are non-voting participants, will be one person, and it will be the recruiter as selected by the HR manager. And that the term of the committee run until such time as council successfully appoints a new CAO by bylaw. Does that raise any questions or comments? No, seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? And that appears to carry. Thank you very much. That carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The report before you is looking for approval for a community flag raising for World Autism Day on April 2nd. I stand for any questions.
Thank you for that. Anyone with questions? Seeing none, I'm going to read a resolution moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the community flag raising request, Autism Ontario World Autism Day, celebrate the spectrum as outlined in the staff report LS-2024-009 be approved. Any comments? I'll call a question. All in favor? And that carries as well. Thank you. Next up, Director Benke, welcome to it.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. Your Worship, the report before you is recommending the award of the assignment of the level of service study to the firm of GHD Limited in the amount of $135,740 plus HST. That I be authorized to execute all the necessary documents, and that the authority for review and approval of all matters related to the study, save and accept the approval of the final recommendations and report, be delegated by council to the General and Finance Committee. Staff prepared terms of reference, which council approved, and circulated that to the community of firms that are familiar with this work. There were a number of firms that were interested in performing services for the township. However, given the timing that we were facing, they were unable to submit bids. That having been said, GHD is a well-known, well-respected international firm. It's actually an Australian firm with offices throughout the Asia Pacific area as well as in Canada. And to allay any fears about their abilities, they have done a number of projects, including Surrey, BC, a number in Brampton, Mississauga, Belleville, that are identical to what we are asking them to do. So I'm quietly confident that they will be more than capable of fulfilling the objectives of the project. So with that, Your Worship, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you for the report and for the comments. Does anyone have any questions for Director Becking before I read a resolution? I'm seeing none, so thank you. I'll read the resolution, then I will have a little bit to say before we move forward. But moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that Council award RFP-2024-01 for the completion of a level of service study to GHD Limited in the amount of $135,740 plus HST. and that the Director of Operational Services be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract, and that authority for review and approval of all matters related to the study, save and accept approval of the final recommendations and report, be hereby delegated to the General and Finance Committee of Council. Okay, does that pop up any questions or comments? Still seeing them, okay. Let me just, a quick editorial from me. This document, this proposed next step, and maybe I'm overstating it, but to me, it becomes kind of the central nervous system for pretty much everything that we're planning to do here. We have been blessed with some very strong contributions through the tax roll. We have a huge, vast area to support. We have a combination of 7,500 permanent residents, year-round residents. We have another 35,000 residents who are here as and when they choose. We have visitors and tourists. And what I look at this document as is the way for us to step back and hand over to the control of but for the input of some very skilled technicians, the opportunity to evaluate what we need to do in order to give the appropriate level of support. And the appropriate level of support is going to have a lot to do with who's using it, where we're using it, when we use it, and how much money we have to spend on it. And there's probably other variables. But this brings all of that home to roost under one roof with one really careful set of, I'm understanding now, Australian eyes, and gives us the opportunity to confidently now put the stake in the ground and move forward with a lot of the work that we've been doing the groundwork on. And I'm thinking about things like Parks and Trails Master Plan. I understand arena feasibility study. I understand everything else that we've been looking at, and fire station location, community centers, everything that is the skeleton of this township has a chance to be reviewed carefully, measured against comparable situations in other municipalities, measured against available funds, prioritized to a certain degree, and even staged, I'm going to guess, in terms of what gets done when and how we can possibly afford it or pay for it. So I think it's a critical next step. I'm excited that it's coming in under our watch. There's no doubt a lot of work to do. I certainly want to thank everyone who's touched it so far, Director Becking in particular, for getting it this far. And I'm really happy to see it on today's agenda for approval. So, Councillor Bosenworth.
Through you, and I agree with you completely. Ever since this concept has come up, I've been very curious in my mind about what this thing looks like. And on that topic, I was wondering if Director Becking could guide us to some examples where those of us more keen on this topic might have a look at what's been done, perhaps by this supplier, so that we can get a flavor of what it's going to look like.
Director Becking, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. We requested that the consultant provide us with references, which we did check, and they came back favorable in every instance. The three, if memory serves, was Mississauga, Brampton, and Ajax. I know, however, all of those three are in various stages of completion. They're well advanced, but they don't have council's final stamp on them. That having been said, as I say, they were all well advanced. I know that they have also in their proposal indicated.
You put them to sleep. I'm sorry, no, you didn't.
Was it something I said? They've also done work in Surrey, BC. City of Belleville are two others that immediately come to mind, and I'm sure I could offer, if people are interested, I could offer you an extended list where you could go and look and see what it is that they have done. But when I look at the information that they supplied, and I went and compared to what it is that we're looking for, These folks have done it. They don't have to invent this process. They've already done it. And I am aware of the firm. I have not worked with them directly, but I know that they have done work in and around the area, as well as obviously for municipalities elsewhere in Ontario. And I believe them to be a very capable outfit.
Thank you. That's good. Anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Edwards.
Yes, through the chair.
Thank you.
To Director Reagan, how many small communities have they done, like small rural communities?
Your worship, I don't know the answer to the question, I'm afraid. But they are the municipalities that I referred to. Belleville, I know, is about 60,000. Ajax is about the same. I'm not sure that the size of the municipality is necessarily a critical factor, because regardless of the size of the municipality, the tasks that need to be accomplished and the things that need to be looked at are all the same. And, you know, some municipalities may provide water and sewer where we do not, or they might provide some other service where we do not. But I think in its essence, the work to be done is the same, regardless of whether we're talking single tier, upper tier, lower tier, big, small, medium size. So I'm not sure that I would be concerned about that.
Okay, anyone else? I'm going to call the question. I have read the resolution. Yes, I have read the resolution. So I will call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Now I am going to recuse. I'm going to leave the chair here in the capable hands of the deputy mayor and step out. Thank you.
What am I doing? Oh, okay, we're on item something J, 10J. Director Donaldson.
Thank you. So Council, I appeared with this item at General Finance Committee in October, and it was subsequently approved by Council in November. Subsequent to that, new information became available, and there were some minor edits that needed to be made in the interest of transparency. Bringing this agreement with the Muskoka Lakes Public Library forward in its entirety, as amended and agreed to by the Muskoka Lakes Public Library Board, just for your ratification once again. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Committee, Council, sorry. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that the amended memorandum of understanding, Muskoka Lakes Public Library, as attached to report FIN 2024-003 be approved. And that resolution GFC 3-11-1023 be hereby rescinded. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any necessary documentation to a form that is satisfactory to the Director of Financial Services and the township's solicitor. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking for food. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty quick. Okay, remind me where we are. Oh, we're right here. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to bylaws. Thank you very much. And I think, Rochelle, are you on the first one? If you are, that'd be great. Bylaw 2024-028.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. Bylaw 2024-028 is for the purposes of stopping up, closing, and conveying an original shore road allowance on Lake Rosso.
Thank you for that. And will you stand for any questions?
I guess so.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? No, I see none, so I will read this resolution. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Lake Rosso, lying in front of concession 5, part lot 27 lot, designated as part 4 on plan 35R-23401 Hanson roll 2-9-090, be declared as surplus land. And that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001. And that bylaw 2024-028 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as part 4 on 35R-23401 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you. Do you want to introduce the next one, or want me just to read it? No, you go ahead.
2024-029 is for the purposes of authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a license agreement. This application was approved by the General Finance Committee in March 2023. I stand for questions.
Thank you for that. Anyone with a question? I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-029, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to a license agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes and 1-000-325-902 Ontario Inc., roll number 8-8-005, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. What do we got next? All right, there's no report on this one, so I'll read it. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-037, being a bylaw to appoint a consultant and their staff members as sewage system maintenance inspectors for the implementation of the sewage system maintenance inspection program, policy C-PS-04, and the Building Code Act and the building bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Oops, that is carried. Next one, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-035, being a bylaw to delegate authority to the clerk with respect to commenting to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, AGCO, on applications for cannabis retail stores be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? Thank you. That carried. Next up, moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Roberts is not here, by Councillor Edwards. We'll make it Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-036, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2023-048, which is a bylaw to implement an administrative monetary penalty system in the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next up, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-038, a bylaw to deem Lot 20, Plan 18 in the former Township of Medora, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes, District Municipality of Muskoka, being a lot on a plan of subdivision is hereby deemed not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision for the purposes of Section 50, Sub 3 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended. Oakfield, roll number 5-5-016, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Next, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-034 to designate site plan control Goodman, part of lots 6 and 7, concession 6 Monk, roll number 9-1-008-05, be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Okay, this one has two parts to it, and there are no minor amendments, and I understand no presentation. So moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-031 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Hess and Mills, roll number 6-20-073, be ready first and second time. Councillor Nishikawa.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had this on. I'm curious about the outcome. When we left this in planning, there was further conversations about the soil that's being used for septics, and I'm just I'm kind of concerned because I'm not sure people know how to apply for or like what to expect when they apply for their septic any longer. So I don't know if there's an update on that information.
Who would like to speak to that? Welcome.
Hello, through you, Mayor Kelley. This application, I know that Mr. Sharp has been in correspondence with the applicants and have been working on an agreement to implement some of the concerns. And I see that he's popped on the call, although now he's gone. But maybe I will defer to him to speak to this further.
Mr. Sharp, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Crowder. Just to clarify, committee, or I should say, Planning Committee recommended a condition of consent requiring that a consent agreement be entered into for the specific use of soils or equivalent septic abatement technologies on the severed and retained lots. As part of your consent agenda today, you have now approved and finalized that condition. So the owners will be at this point required to enter into that agreement. And as Ms. Crowder had noted, I spoke with Ms. Mills and we had a conversation about the details of the condition itself, and I had followed up with a second draft agreement to try to address some of her concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone with other questions? All right. Have I read this? Thanks. Okay, I'm going to read a resolution then. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-031 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Hess and Mills, roll number 6-20-073, be ready first and second time. I think I did read that. Okay, well, why don't we read it a third time? Okay. Does anyone, no comments, no questions, then all in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. This one, let's read this one the one time. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-031, Hess and Mills, roll number 6-20-073, be ready a third time and finally passed. Questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay, similar drill here. Resolution, there's no report, so we will go right to reading. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-033 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Schultz, roll number 9-1-011-02, be ready first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Same matter, moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-033, Schultz, roll number 9-1-011-02, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Okay, one more time. Although, yep, okay. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-030, Leach and Kennedy, roll number 5-9-021, be read a first and second time. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next one in same matter, moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-030, Leach and Kennedy, roll number 5-9-021, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Write the signature. Okay, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-032 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Taylor Coburn, roll number 6-7-079, be read a first time and second time. A first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-032, Taylor Coburn, roll number 6-7-079, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. This must be the last one, is it? Okay. Next up, moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that council convene at 2:20 p.m. for advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, section 239 sub 2 sub f, and proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, section 239 sub 2 sub c of the Municipal Act 2001. And under that, number one, confidential report CCS-2024-04. And B, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, section 239 sub 2 sub e, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, section 239 sub 2 sub f of the Municipal Act 2001. And under that, number one, confidential report CCS-2024-05. All in favor? Thank you very much. So we will, I gotta sign it. Right, thanks. Yeah, so I'm going to propose a 10-minute break. Is that what anybody was looking for? We can take just a 10-minute break and be back here at 2:30, and we will discontinue the mics and clear the room and be ready to go with those closed session matters. Thank you.